Hello everyone, it's Ephemeral Style here, captain of the Colorado Dragons Den, and I'm going to take you through our Week 5 and 6 game of the Turn 17 Rock Season 4 Draft League in a doubleheader. I missed uploading last week because of Thanksgiving weekend, so apologies for that, but let's just jump right into it. Up first is Murph in our Week 5 game. It's a very scary sun team. Torkoal obviously sets the sun for Gouging Fire, Walking Wake, and Hisui and Lilligant to be sweepers. Clodsire sets up hazards and provides pivots out in front of something like our Primarina. Mousehold is hazard control and also is a scary sweeper if it's Terra's. Como is on the team. Oricorio can provide different types depending on what matchup he's most afraid of. Ditto stops us from doing something like getting a Battle Bond Greninja set up and sweeping the game because it can just reverse us. And then Porygon 2 is a bulky Terra captain that can, again, fill a lot of roles. Probably Terra Fairy because the team doesn't have a Fairy type or really any way to switch into Dragons. If you look at our team, you'll notice that Vikavolt has been traded for Colossal, who is now Terra Captain, Terra Rock, Grass, and Ghost. Grass gives us a resistance to both ground and water, which are 4-time effective on us before we Terra, so it's nice to have resistance to both of those. With Flash Fire, we can also make ourselves immune to fire, giving us only a weakness to flying and ice, which are not types you really want to use to hit Colossal to begin with. And then Ghost is a spin block Terra type because we don't have a Ghost type, and Colossal can layer on Stealth Rocks and Spikes. He also spins and Will-O-Wisps and is just a good piece of utility. You might notice we already have the physically defensive role filled with Arcaludon and the spinner with Serena and Kamala, but by adding another spinner and another physically defensive mon, we can free Serena and Arcaludon to do more like wall breaking type of sets, more utility stuff. So the idea is to add redundancy to free us up elsewhere. So let's get into the team for this matchup. Okay, up first is our Colossal. We are rocking Terragrass Flashfire this week, as I mentioned in the intro, to take on Gouging Fire. That's why we are extremely physically bulky. We're rocking Stealth Rock, Power Gem, Will-O-Wisp, and Rapid Spin. We're obviously not going to be able to Wisp Gouging Fire, but we can get good chip damage on a lot of the other members of Murph's team when that switches out. Citrus Berry lets us take banded Dragon type moves pretty well because obviously we're going to eat up fire type moves with Flash Fire and Earthquake and stuff like that with our Terra Grass. Power Gem is our move of choice to hit Gouging Fire, get into range of something like rocks if it's not boots, and just Rapid Spin to remove the hazards that Clodsire and Torkoal are probably going to get up during the game. Next up is an Assault Vest Primarina with Surf, Draining Kiss, Moonblast, and Flip Turn. Very odd EV spread here. Our special attack is for rolls against Walking Wake. Our defense is coupled with our HP for rolls against Mousehold. Everything else goes into our Spadef with our Assault Vest to take on Walking Wake. Honestly, instead of Flip Turn, which I put on last minute, I should have had Psychic Noise as a means to hit Clodsire and Stuff, Recover, and Leftovers Healing. I didn't have that, and now I'm super walled, which is something that I come to realize in game just how often the Primarina Clodsire interaction comes up. So that was a bit silly of me, but that's just how it turns out. Next is our Scarf Greninja. This is sort of our panic button to anything that looks like it's about to get out of control and sweep us. Something like a Gouging Fire that gets a DD or Scale Shot off, a Booster Speed Wake, a Sui and Lilligant that gets Victory Dance assuming Sun has ended, Mousehold that gets a Tidy Up, something like that. There's a lot of ways that we could lose the game if we position poorly, and Greninja as a revenge killer with Protean and a Choice Scarf is a great way to bail us out of that. We're rocking Dark Pulse, Sludge Wave, Blizzard, and then U-Turn for momentum. Otherwise, just max attack, speed to outspeed everything. After it gets a boost, specifically Mousehold, we can outspeed Mousehold at +1, and that is our Greninja. Next up is Slowking Galar. We're rocking a very physically defensive set this week with Psychic, Toxic, Future Sight, and Chilly Reception. Our physical defense helps us take on Hisui and Lilligant. which we can blow up with a Psychic, especially if it's a Life Orb set and it's going to chip itself. Chilly Reception lets us reset the sun. Toxic stops us from getting set up and swept by a lot of guys. And it also lets us chip things like Porygon too if they come. And then Future Sight is because there's no Dark type on their team. So if we get the opportunity to get a floating Future Sight, we can do a bunch of damage to something. Black Sludge is important for keeping us alive into Hisuian Lilligant. Next up is our Arcaliodon. We're running Stamina Custat Berry with Draco Meteor, Flash Cannon, Thunder Wave, and Dragon Pulse with a ton of special attack. Our defense is to take on Mousehold, even with Stamina, just to be safe. Obviously, we could be Sturdy Custab, but I couldn't keep hazards off enough in mocks, so Sturdy was getting wasted, and we still find ourselves in Custab range a decent amount with our spread, so it made sense to keep. I really would have liked to just drop Scarf Dracos with Arcaliodon, but it just made more sense on Gren this week. And then there's no, besides Porygon, there's no Dragon Resist, so we can drop Dracos, and if we get hit low, we can take advantage of our Custap area to get a Thunder Wave off on something like Walking Wake that might be really scary to the team otherwise. And then finally is Mamoswine, 252 attack Adamant with Never Melt Ice, rocking Ice Shard, Earthquake, Icicle Crash, and Rock Slide. Pretty standard stuff. We just need to get things into range of Never Melt Ice, Ice Shard range, and Mamoswine can save our asses in a lot of cases. So let's get into the game. Here we are with the game. These are pretty much the first 5 are the 5 I expected. The last slot is sort of a toss-up between something like Porygon or Mousehold, or even Komodo, but I didn't think that would come. I was pretty surprised to see that Oricorio was the bring, but I guess it does make sense. Mamoswine looks really good into the team if you don't have a flying type, but that does mean I just need to get one Icicle Crash play right to open up Earthquake pretty freely. So let's get into it. We're going to lead Colossal and try and get our Terra off early so we can switch into Gouging Fire without having to risk EQs, and hopefully not get punished by something like Torkoal is completely fine for us, but Walking Wake, we need to get out of there. So we lead Colossal, our opponent leads Walking Wake, so we're just going to immediately get out into Primarina. He clicks Hydro Steam. That damage is going to tell us that it's Specs, but based on our EVs, it's hard to tell if it's Modest or Timid, but it's definitely Choice Specs. So that's something that's very scary. Clodsire comes in on our Draining Kiss. We get back up to pretty much full, and our opponent gets back up to full with leftovers. We're just going to get out into Slowking Galar as our opponent layers a set of spikes. We get up a Future Sight to force them out later, and they Earthquake for a ton of damage. I can live another one and Chilly Reception here, but I don't want to be low enough that I can't come back in and check Logan later, so I decided to take my Regenerator, get out into Mamoswine because I can take Earthquakes pretty comfortably. Mamoswine's not going to have to trade hits a lot this matchup. It's sort of going to come in on slow mons like this when it gets the chance. Eat up this Earthquake, and this is our first opportunity to either click Earthquake or Icicle Crash. Clodsire is weak to both. I decided just to go straight for the Icicle Crash this time and get the play right. So Earthquake is really free for the rest of the game. Walking Wake comes in, it's going to force us back into our Primarina. Again, we're getting chipped down. This time we know it's Modest because of that roll. Torkoal comes in this time on the Moonblast, and we are going to do a ton and get a drop. We get out into our Colossal because a Fire move isn't going to do a ton to us. Solar Beam isn't going to do a ton to us after the drop. If he goes for rocks, I can take this opportunity to spin, but he's going to double out into Clodsire. I'm going to Terra Grass here because I don't think that he's going to just Gunk Shot me. I figure an Earthquake's pretty likely, and he's going to go into Gouging Fire and get a Protosynthesis attack raise. But this is fine for us because Grass Colossals are our check for this anyways. He crashes, banking on us being Steam Engine, but instead we're Flash Fire, so we get a bunch of chunk off. I'm expecting a switch here into Clodsire, who's going to take a Power Gem, no problem. So I just take this opportunity to get my Stealth Rocks up. I want to get a Will-O-Wisp off here, even if I'm going to take a Gunk Shot for it, because if this gets burned, Pokemon like Mamoswine and G-King can come on it a lot more freely. So that would be really nice. So I click Will-O-Wisp into the Clodsire, which I expect staying in. Instead of Walking Wake, it comes in and gets burned. which doesn't do much to stop it as a threat, but the chip damage over time is really going to add up for our Mamoswine later in the game. We get out into Primarina, take this Hydro Steam in the sun. It does so much damage. This is modest specs for sure, so we just have to let Primarina go. The sun ends, so the photosynthesis boost ends, as well as the boost to Hydro Steam's damage. So we can get in our Calyodon and threaten to throw up a huge Draco Meteor here. Clodsire comes in, and we just go for Dragon Pulse, and he takes like nothing. I don't want to get chipped on this just yet because I can still use it to check certain things outside of Sun. So we're going to get into Mamoswine, but our opponent layers Spikes instead of going for Earthquake, so we get even more times to come in with Mamo. Here, obviously, Earthquake is super free, so we just click it. Our opponent decides to sack the Gouging Fire, which I guess makes sense. It was probably walled pretty hard by Colossal, and it was in Spike's range. It's going to be hard to get a spin off. Walking Wake comes back in. We get out into Colossal. I'm expecting a Hydro Steam here to kill Mamoswine, but what I didn't realize is that because our Fairy type went down, our opponent is just going to be dropping Dragon Pulse, which is really free for them. So well played by them. We are going to lose Colossal to this, which means this Spike and any future Spikes are staying up. We do get more rounds of burn. Those rounds of burn are important because it now means that Greninja can revenge kill this with Sludge Wave. Torkoal is going to come in, take rocks. We Sludge Wave and put this thing into range of another rock switch. So I'd opt to go for Sludge Wave again here to pick up the low HP Torkoal. We could have seen a switch to Clodsire, but I think that would have just wasted more of your Sun turns. I don't think Lilligant can pack Defog, so Torkoal's going to be dead to rocks next time it comes in. And that's why I didn't want to let this Torkoal live, because it could have spun away the rocks, or it could have set up rocks that we can no longer remove thanks to our Colossal being dead. So even though we could have gone G-King and sort of wasted Sun turns or chillied out and reset the Sun, I didn't want hazards to be removed because I wanted more chip on Walking Wake for Mamoswine, and I didn't want more hazards to go up on our side and ship us into range of a lot of things. So that's why I opted to kill the Torkoal here. Interesting decision point, but that's what we went with. Lilligant Hisui comes in the Sun. It is faster than us, so even with our Scarf, we obviously are Poison type, so we resist the Grass and Fighting Stab, but I don't think Greninja can take a hit, so we are going to get out into our Slowking, who is meant to check this, as Triple Axle comes out, and with this damage and this proc, it is going to reveal that it's Life Orb, so Greninja probably would have exploded there, so it's a good thing we managed to switch out. Here, we're in a good spot to throw off a Psychic or even Chilly Reception out into Greninja and just click Blizzard, Blizzard, Blizzard and win the game. And then we get Sleep Powdered, so that is not going to be happening. So things started to get a little scary here. Our opponent withdraws Walking Wake as we burn a turn of Sun. There's only a certain amount of Sun turns left. Walking Wake is with rocks and burn here, just one round of burn away from being in range of Mamoswine Ice Shard. So something has to die here that can't be Mamoswine. Looking at what our opponent has left, I decide the sack is our Calyodon because it's never getting to Clodsire and it's probably dying to Lilligant. So goodbye our Calyodon. Sad to see you go like this, but we got the burn chip we needed. Mamoswine can come in here and pick up the Walking Wake. Makes sense that it goes down. If it comes back in on rocks and burn, it's not going to be able to do too much more, and Greninja's going to be able to outspeed it, obviously. Now Lilligant comes in here and I'm thinking, sweet, I can just Ice Shard, Ice Shard, Ice Shard, and the game is going to end. And then our opponent reveals Upper Hand on Lilligant and kills Mamoswine, and all of a sudden things got a lot scarier. I probably could have just gone to Slowking there if I had thought about Upper Hand, but I didn't. So great bring by our opponent. Instead of going Greninja and forcing a switch into Clodsire by clicking like Sludge Wave, Blizzard is really inaccurate. I don't want to rely on that to win. So instead, I'm going to bank on our Slowking waking up in enough time to chilly out into Blizzard, give it 100% accuracy and win the game. Clodsire comes in and we get a really lucky wake up here. We had a bit of time thanks to our Black Sludge recovery to live and try and get this off. But it's nice that we get it immediately because it means Greninja can come in and click Blizzard over and over again. Protean turning us into an ice type in the hail means we're going to be taking even less from this earthquake, which is great. And that is going to wrap up the game. So very scary matchup against Sun. You can sort of try and out offense or out defense Sun. We went for a defensive route and nearly got blown up for it. But I think Mamoswine made some great plays, and our new addition Colossal got a ton of work off. That burn on Walking Wake was huge for getting us in range of Mamoswine. So that puts us at 3-2, which is pretty nice going into the next part of the season. And I'll be right back with our matchup for week 6. All right, here we are with the matchup for week 6 against Bumpereddy and the Rain team. So out of the frying pan, not really into the fire, but you know what I mean, weather into weather, very scary teams here. You might notice the team on the left looks very different. We'll get to that in a second. But let's talk about our opponent's team. Palafin is obviously an insanely good Pokemon. It is a phenomenal breaker, a phenomenal endgame cleanup Pokemon with Jet Punch. It's a bulk up setup sweeper. It has special options. And in the rain, its water type stab is just even scarier. The obvious downside is you got to switch it out, but our opponent has a lot of bulk to facilitate that. Annihilate is a scary Pokemon overall. It's very versatile. It can play Choice Scarf roles. It can be a bulky setup threat similar to Palafin. It can be utility with things like rocks. Heatran, again, another stealth rocker that can be either more defensive or more offensive depending on what the matchup calls for. Dragonite actually has a lot of leeway to be special on our Rain team thanks to Hurricane getting 100% accuracy. But again, it's a DD setup sweeper. If you watched our run last season, you know just how good Dragonite can be. Galarian Weezing serves hazard removal. It's also a grounded poison type, a fairy type, and a physically defensive check to a lot of our team. Raikou in the rain can click Thunder very freely and do a ton of damage, especially if it's like Magnet or Specs or something like that. So just something to be afraid of there. It's very fast as well. Pelipper, obviously important setting the rain. And then the last couple guys are a little odd. Rhydon is useful in being an electric type pivot for a Pokemon like Zapdos. As a Terra Captain, it can sort of help the matchup there as well. Golduck is a Swift Swim sweeper on the special side in case the other guys can't get it done. Meowstic is a utility mon that I see Bumpereddy bring a lot, especially with Trick. So that's one thing that I'm considering very heavily, is if I see a Meowstic, I'm expecting to get tricked. Beartic can be a very scary Terra Captain. Obviously, it has Swift Swim for Pelipper, but if our opponent tries to outbrain us and bring Slush Rush for our Galarian Slowking, trying to reverse weather, then props to them. And then Fiona as a Terra Captain just does what Manaphy does and sets up Take Hearts and tries to take advantage of the rain to cure status conditions and stuff like that. So first of all, our team's undergone a lot of changes. We have dropped Primarina, Mamoswine, Arcaludon, and Serena, and I've picked up Azumarill, Kyurem, Donphan, and Orthworm. Last week was the end of the trade deadline, and I made some pretty big changes to the team here. I did like how it was starting to feel last week, but I wanted some more oomph. So we picked up Kyurem as one of the few remaining oomph mons on the board, I should say. Obviously, Kyurem is really strong with special options like Ice Beam, Freeze Dry to hit water types, Earth Power, Flash Cannon, Draco Meteor, but also being able to go physical with the addition of loaded dice for things like Scale Shot and Icicle Spear and Dragon Dance, or even run mix sets with Freeze Dry to still hit water types. With Pressure and Kyurem's Bulk, there are sets that are Leftovers, Pressure, Substitute, Protect, Stall, to PP stall your opponent's Kyurem out of PP on the move that they need to beat Kyurem. That's really cringe, but maybe there's a matchup for it, and maybe I'll bring it. Azumarill is taking over the fairy type role of Primarina. I don't think I was utilizing Primarina the best on the team, and I wanted a big boost of physical power, especially losing Mamoswine, so that's where Azumarill comes in with huge power. Just very strong Pokemon with a choice band, with a citrus berry. You can run belly drum sets with Aqua Jet to clean up games. So it's nice that we retain our priority options there. Donphan is our new addition of hazard removal with physical power now that Serena's leaving. Um, it can fit rocks, on matchups where Azelf doesn't want to bring them, or we can't bring like Colossal or Orthworm or something to set them. It's a great AV user as well because it doesn't always have to fit rocks. It can fit moves like Knockoff and really powerful Earthquakes and Ice Spinners and Ice Shards even. So even though it's not Stab anymore, we still have Ice Shards, so that's funny. And then Orthworm is a budget steel type. Earth Eater is really good with Pokemon like Colossal and G-King on the team. It also gives us a lot of physical defense when Donphan doesn't want to fill that role or Colossal doesn't want to fill that role. It stacks hazards just like Colossal, and it does the Iron Defense Body Press thing, and it's a decent check to Fairy types, even though it doesn't have the great Spadaf. Obviously, it can't Shed Tail in this league, or I would have mentioned it. So that is our team after the trades. Let's get into the team for this matchup. First up and leading the charge is Kyurem, the reason that we pretty much blew up our draft and made a bunch of changes. So this is a really great matchup for Kyurem. So hopefully we can justify all the trades we made. We're running an Expert Belt with Freeze Dry, Earth Power Substitute, and Flash Cannon. Freeze Dry hits pretty much the entire team. Earth Power hits Heatran, which is one of the only things Freeze Dry doesn't hit. Substitute is great for, it's an interesting mid-ground play on a switch out because nothing wants to take a hit from Kyurem if we can press the right button. So it gives us that position of safety to do that from. And then Flash Cannon is for a levitating Galarian Weezing, as well as something like a Beartic that has not terastallized. We're Expert Belt because we can hit the team special effectively so hard. We are faster than an Adamant Palafin, which is why we are timid, even though Modest would be great. Our HP and defense is for rolls against Palafin as well. Otherwise, just a ton of attack to blow up this team. Next is Slowking Galar, just max special defense this week with Future Sight. Earthquake for Heatran does more damage than our Mudshot alternative. Toxic Spikes, because if our opponent doesn't bring Galarian Weezing, they're super free to get up and can cripple Palafin. And also, if Galarian Weezing does come, we have a way to punish that, which I'll talk about in a minute. And of course, Chilly Reception to reset weather and give us that momentum, and Black Sludge for some additional recovery with our Regenerator. Then we have Orthworm. Orthworm is a good check for physical Dragonite if it comes. It's a good check for something like Rhydon if that happens to come. I brought Stealth Rock because I don't foresee myself getting up multiple layers of spikes, and also because I wanted to hit Pelipper. We are just max defense, max HP, Iron Defense, Body Press, Heavy Slam. It'll help us take on Palafin if it starts setting up in our face. Earth Eater and Leftovers for longevity. Orthworm, I had to bring it in one of this game or the next two games, and I thought this was the best week for it. It might still come to one of the next couple games, but I wasn't sure about that, so I needed to make room for it on the squad to make sure we are eligible for playoffs. Then we have Azelf, Choice Scarf with Terra Psychic, Psychic Energy Ball, Encore, and U-Turn. Heatran is a pretty important special defensive piece for our opponent. If it goes down, Azelf and Kyurem can really run wild with their stabs. So to accentuate that, I'm bringing Terra Psychic Psychic. This was a choice specs set for a long time, but I decided to opt for a timid set instead with Scarf to outspeed Swift Swim Golduck, actually, which is pretty crazy. That's Modest Swift Swim Golduck. We also outspeed Beartic in whatever weather it is, which is nice. So we have Energy Ball to hit Pokemon like Palafin and a Terrid Beartic, and then U-Turn for momentum. Encore to lock the setup sweepers into their move of choice. And then we have not max attack because we needed defense in order to take a Jet Punch from a banded Palafin or a +1 Palafin at +1. So that means we can still get off our Energy Ball. And because we need to be at max HP for that, can't have hazards up. And that means we're bringing our Spinner, Dawn Fan is coming. Rapid Spin, Ice Shard, Knockoff, and Earthquake with an Assault Vest. Our attack is for Knockoff and Earthquake rolls into Annihilate. We just have max HP, and then our bulk goes into special defense to aid in our Assault Vest. Obviously, we're sturdy, so we can take a move, but if hazards are up and we're switching into it, which they probably will be, we're going to be losing that sturdy pretty quickly. But there's only Annihilate to spin block, and obviously we can get some good chip off that and learn more about its set with Dawn Fan here. And finally, we're bringing Zapdos. No Hurricane into the rain matchup because it just doesn't hit anything. So we're bringing Weather Ball instead, so we can hit a Raikou, Discharge, Roost, and U-turn. Our Spadef investment is to handle timid Thunderbolt Raikous. And then otherwise we have defense for Banded Palafin. We always live 2 Jet Punches or 1 Wave Crash from Banded Palafin. And then everything else just goes into our special attack. U-turn instead of Volt Switch in case Rhydon comes and tries to Lightning Rod us even after a Terra, and then just Roost for longevity. So that's our team for the rain matchup week 6 in the Bumpereddy. Let's get into the game. All right, here we are with the game. Palafin and Heatran and Pelipper are all pretty expected. Weezing came in the spot that I thought was a flex spot. I thought for sure Dragonite would be on the team, and Annihilate as well, but there just wasn't room, I guess. Beartic is scary into the team, so it makes sense. I don't really know what Meowstic does into us. Obviously, I'm looking for Trick, but that's what I'm expecting. We're going to lead G-King and go for T-Spikes, because if we can force Galarian Weezing in, it means we can get into Azelf and start blowing things up with Terra Psychic. So that's the idea. If we blow up Heatran and open this game up for Kyurem, it's looking pretty good. So let's get into things. So our opponent is going to lead Palafin, as you should, as a Palafin player, which is going to give us our free turn to get a Future Sight up instead of clicking T-Spikes. We just decide to Earthquake this Heatran and get it chipped. We handle Earth Power from it pretty well, so I just wanted to start getting chip on this. Our opponent's going to miss Magma Storm as we layer our Toxic Spikes. Future Sight chips this Heatran. Again, there's no way for it to heal. It's not leftovers. So Heatran being this low already is great for us. Pelipper comes in, which is a little interesting to me because I was expecting Weezing Galar to come in. But anyways, we Chili and immediately reset the weather in our favor. We get in Zapdos. There is no electric type switch in on this team, so we just get to Discharge. Looking at this bulk, I thought this was going to be a slow Heatran. Because Magma Storm missed, I can't see how much special attack investment it is, but I figured it's a slow, bulky Heatran, and that Zapdos should outspeed it. But our opponent reveals that he's fast, bulky Heatran and gets 44% off on Zapdos. Discharge picks up the kill, which frees us from further chip, but we are all of a sudden in range of Wave Crash, which is scary. We can't take 2 moves from Palafin anymore as well. Weezing comes in and is neutralizing gas, so it is grounded, which means that Kyurem's Earth Power would be super free into it, but it does mean that he can remove the T-Spikes without having to click Defog. He's going to double into Meowstic as we just U-turn out of there, get a big chunk of damage off on Meowstic, get in Dawn Fan with an AV. We can eat hits from this pretty well. It doesn't really have a way to touch us. It's got pretty poor special attack, and we can just take this opportunity to spin. We also threaten Knockoff. Meowstic is going to trick us an Iron Ball, so our super slow Dawn Fan, even with +1, is just never outspeeding anything. Weezing comes in on the knock. We knock off the helmet. This is obviously very physically defensive. I don't really want to get whisked here on Dawn Fan. It can still be useful in dealing physical damage to other threats down the line. So even though Earthquake looks pretty good here, we're going to get burned because we're so slow with Iron Ball that it's just not going to do a lot of damage. So we get onto G-King, who's okay with getting burned. Obviously, with Weezing in, it means we can force another switch by getting up a T-Spike or a Future Sight. So we put up a Future Sight. Beartic comes in. I know this is a Terra Captain that can Terra Ground. That's what I'm expecting. So I'm going to get out into Earthworm with Earth Eater. He Terras and Earthquakes. I'm expecting close combat if he has it, but the way he switches there makes me think he's banded. I Iron Defense. Meowstic takes this feature site. I guess he didn't want Beartic taking it. Wheezing comes in as we just double out into Zapdos on the Meowstic because U-turn is pretty free, and I wanted the opportunity to try and roost on Meowstic. Meowstic comes in. We managed to get our roost off. I don't really care about losing my boots at this point if it wants to trick an AV or something. Oh, it can't. It's AV. It can't trick me. He alluring voices. I don't know if he was afraid of like agility here. I guess I haven't revealed that I'm boots, so I don't think I revealed that I was boots, did I? No, I did. I came in on Heatran. So there's no like metal sound threats price stuff. So I don't really know what the alluring voice was for. I don't really know what it hit. Maybe it hit into Kyurem, but we're just gonna get U-turn, pick up the Meowstic with the U-turn, get into our Kyurem to see what our opponent wants to do. Pelipper is gonna be the switch to get Rain Up, which makes sense to me now because he needs Swift Swim on Beartic, but at the same time, this means that I just get a free Freeze Dry. Wheezing comes in. Wheezing is very bulky, but not on the special side. And this is a very strong Kyurem. So Wheezing's gone. I guess neutralizing gas. Let's get pressure again. Beartic comes in. I'm expecting a close combat now into Zapdos. That damage is unfortunately low. It means our opponent is not choice banned. And unfortunately, it means we are just barely in range of like mid-roll Icicle Crash. There are some rolls we live. There's also a good amount that we die. I don't really want to take a CC onto anything. I could go G-King, but if I get the play wrong and get Earthquaked, I'm really sad. So I decide to let Zapdos go down here to an Icicle Crash if that happens to land and kill, which it does both. This means we get it Azelf. Our opponent doesn't know that we're Scarfed here, so that's really great for us because means we get to pick up the kill with Energy Ball. Pelipper comes in. We're just going to get out into Orthworm because U-turn into Palafin is pretty obvious, and we need to get Orthworm in for free. Palafin comes in for the first time since it switched out at the beginning of the game with 2 turns of rain. Wave Crash comes in, does a ton of damage, but it reveals that this is not banded Palafin. Our opponent bulks up with the last turn of rain as we body press. Now this means it's a Drain Punch is coming out, which means we have to get another Iron Defense if we want to live. We do, which means Drain Punch comes out again. Obviously, we want to keep Palafin low, so we body press, pick it up with Big Earthworm. Pelipper comes back in. Here I had a lapse in judgment. Even though the game is effectively over at this point, we can always just go into Slowking and then Chili into Kyurem and win with a very easy 5-0. But instead, I allow Pelipper to pick up Earthworm, get into Kyurem, click Freeze Dry, and win with a 4-0 instead. And that might not be a huge difference, but after this game, we are sitting at 4-2, along with a couple other players, including our opponent, Bumpereddy, is now sitting at 4-2, and the both of us have a +9 differential. And differential is the first tiebreaker, then head-to-head. So if our opponent has a better differential in the next 2 weeks than we do, even though we have head-to-head, they'll be given a higher playoff spot, even if we both win out. And playoff spots are important because the first 4 seeds get to pick their opponent out of the bottom 4 seeds. So that little differential slip might cost me a playoff spot, which would be really embarrassing. So I hope that doesn't happen. I hope you enjoyed this longer video. Happy Thanksgiving if you celebrated last week, and I'll talk to you all in the next one. Bye-bye.